Hi everyone, it's Evangeline here at eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Kuat Sherpa 2.0 2-bike platform rack right here on our 2022 Kia Sorento. So the Kia Sorento is a very versatile vehicle. You can have a third row of seats. You can fold it down to get more cargo space. In fact, my family used it for a 3-month-long road trip. My dad's a cyclist, so this would have been a great pairing with the Sorento as a place to store its bikes while we're on the road. So we'll talk about the Kuat Sherpa. It's a good middle-of-the-road bike rack. If you want premium features that Kuat has, you want something very stylish, and you want a little bit more weight capacity than a regular platform rack, that's what this is for. So we'll take a look at the specs, measurements, features, but we'll focus on the Sorento. That way you can get the best fit for you, your bikes, and your vehicles. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is a tilt away feature. We have a lever right here. You're going to want to pull that lever and drop this down. Why would you drop a bike rack down? Well, if you want to access your hatch. So as you can see here, look at how much space we have between the door, our pedals, and our handlebars. Even if we had longer handlebars, it probably would have been okay. This means we can get into our cargo space, grab whatever we need, whether it's our helmets, our bags, our waters. Once we've grabbed them, we just lift this bike rack back up. There we go. And just like that, we're ready to hit the road. A whole lot more convenient than having to take your bikes off, which some of your not as premium bike racks or your hanging racks require. This has a weight capacity of 40 pounds per bike. So a little bit more than your average platform rack, but not as much as an electric bike rack. If you want to carry your extra heavy electric bikes, you may want to consider something like the Rocky Mounts monorail. That gives you a bit more weight capacity. What this does do is it makes it easy to mount your bike though. So look at the way our bike is mounted. In the front, we have a front wheel mount. So like I have a carbon fiber frame bike here. If I had the traditional bike rack with a hook that comes down, I'd be worried about warping or cracking that frame. With a front wheel mount like that, I don't have to worry about that. Also convenient with your women's bikes, your children's bikes, your step-through bikes, because then you don't need to get a frame adapter bar. Over here in the back, we have our rear wheel cradle. So this is holding down our rear wheel. When you want to take the bike off, this is actually where you start. You press this lever, pull up on that strap. What I like to do is just fold it over there to the side so it doesn't get caught up in our spokes. Then go back over to the front. Hold on to your bike as you do so. You press this lever, you lift this up, you push that out, and just like that, you can grab your bike and you're ready to go on a bike ride. So I'm just going to leave our bike over to the side so that we can take a closer look at the rack itself. Here in the back, we have our rear wheel cradle. Notice how this tilts back and forth to accommodate those different wheelbases. We have this extra thick strap that goes around, secures that rear wheel. Notice though how we have those different grooves on the rear cradle as well as the front cradle. So the maximum tire width you can carry with this is up to 3 inches. This front cradle folds down to be nice and neat. And then your front wheel mount ratchets down to secure that front wheel, folds down to be compact. So everything just works together to be not only practical, but also stylish. Speaking of stylish, we have the Kuat Sherpa in gray. You can see those orange accents. You can also get this in metallic black or in pearl. The gray looks great with the color we have on our Sorento today though. Now let's talk about clearance and the length that it's the back of our vehicle. Because when you back into your garage or park into a tight spot, you want to know how much space does the bike rack and your bikes take up. So measuring from our bumper to the end of the rack, it sits at 31.5 inches. The Sherpa is just a 2-bike platform rack. So unlike the Transfer or the NV, you cannot add on to this. So that's really going to be the length that it sits at. Another thing we'll take measurements for is ground clearance. So our ground clearance is going to be measured at the end of the rack to the ground, 20 inches. Compare that measurement though over here to the shank, and that sits at 11 inches. So kind of close to the ground, especially compared to your taller SUVs or your trucks. That's why having a shank rise like this, where it sits a little bit higher up, is helpful. For your Sorento, your front's going to go up, your back is going to go down, and you want to make sure that you have enough ground clearance for your bikes. This is a good clearance because you have that clearance for the ground, but you also make it where it's not too high to lift your bikes up onto. Now, another thing we'll talk about is the compact or portable position. Because what if you're not planning on taking your bikes out just yet, but you also don't want to take your bike rack off completely? You can pull this lever, the one we pulled earlier. This time though, we're gonna push on the bike rack and fold it up against our vehicle. Let's take some measurements. The closest point is gonna be from our bumper to our front wheel mount, and that's 3 inches apart, so plenty of clearance there. And then the length now added to the back of our vehicle is gonna be from that bumper to the trays, 7 inches. It does sit out further here by the knobs though, and that is gonna be 12.5 inches. So just a little bit over a foot. Big difference compared to when this rack was folded down. I could definitely see it being nice and stylish behind our Sorento when we're just driving around town, and then it doesn't take up too much space. But what is it like living with a bike rack behind you? Well, notice how our rear window is completely visible, so that's good. Our taillights are visible as well. A really cool thing to see is where our license plate and our backup camera sits. So they're not covered by the bike rack. That's going to be a downside if you have a hanging rack. It sits up there. This is nice and compact. Everything's visible. Everything's legal. Let's talk about how this fits into our hitch. We have a 2-inch shank. But you can get the Kuat Sherpa with an 1.25 inch shank and work the exact same way. Just make sure you get the right one for whatever size hitch receiver you have on. So we have a 2-inch hitch receiver, we have a hitch pin, and a lock. So these keys are for the hitch pin as well as the cable lock that's included with this bike rack. It secures into the trays itself, and then it's a tool-free install. So rather than using a wrench or a socket to tighten down an anti-rattle bolt, we just have an anti-rattle knob here. You turn that knob and it extends a ball cam inside your hitch receiver, creating an anti-rattle effect. In fact, let's do a quick shake test just to show you what I mean. With that all secured, I'm going to shake our bike rack, and notice how as I move it back and forth, I'm really just moving the vehicle at this point. That's because everything is nice and secure. That's a lot of what the Sherpa does. It has a lot of smooth movements. It's a sturdy bike rack. You can carry bikes of different shapes and sizes. Just remember that if you want something with more weight capacity, this would not be it. If you have electric bikes, check out the Rocky Mounts monorail I talked about earlier, or even the Kuat NV. But for most of your regular bikes, this is a really good option. Pairs very well with the Sorento, practically and stylishly. So that right there was a look at the Kuat Sherpa 2.0 2-bike platform rack here on our 2022 Kia Sorento. My name is Evangeline, and I hope you enjoy the journey. Here on our test course, we'll start by going through the slalom. This is going to show us the side-to-side action, which simulates turning corners or evasive maneuvers. Once we get to the alternating speed bumps, we'll see the twisting action. This will simulate hitting a curb or a pothole or driving over uneven pavement. Now lastly, we're going over some full speed bumps, and we can see here the up and down action, and this will just be like driving in and out of a parking lot, garage, or driveway. So we can see here how the bike rack moves with our truck.